Well, it is a Tuesday night. If you're joining us on the live stream on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live, it is the Where Eagles Dare podcast with Lee and Tubby. And we're coming to discuss, right in the middle of a holiday weekend, and that our Christmas didn't kind of go the way we wanted to. This year, we've been able to play the Fly Eagles Fly song after a victory 13 times. But sadly, we will not be playing it tonight because the Eagles and the Cowboys played on Christmas Eve, and it was something. It was it didn't ruin my Christmas, but it didn't make it great. I'll tell you that much. It did put a damper on the festivities. I had people at the house, and with me always is Tubby, by the way. So hi, Tubby, how you doing? I had people there for Christmas Eve, and I told my wife, I said, you can invite people over. I don't care. But it's not going to be like the Super Bowl where everybody just talks during the game and then shuts up for the commercials or whatever. This is serious to me. So luckily nobody showed up in the first half because they probably all would have ran out screaming because I was a lunatic in the first half. And somewhere along the way, when people showed up, I just kind of went into a shell, didn't say much, kind of stared at the TV. And it was just one of those games that the Eagles kept giving you hope only to snatch it away and to totally demoralize you. It was this roller coaster of a game. And I can't go through that very, very, very often. I can't go through that kind of stuff. And I'm going to, after the game was over, a lot of people had a lot of blame to lay out there. But the bottom is they lost as a team. They lost 40-34. Now, that being said, I know who I like to blame, and I know the name of this episode is Eagles turnover, a possible win, and it was. They had 4 turnovers, so that's definitely there's some issues there. But I tell you what, after watching the game, and I tell you what, normally I watch it back, but I didn't even want to watch it back. It was too much for me. I thought about putting it on today, and I don't care. I don't need to see anymore. I know what happened. I watched it once, and I don't need to see it again. I thought that there were things that were done really well by the Eagles, but there were some things that were done excruciatingly bad. So we're just going to jump right into it. I mean, it started off with the field goal right off the bat. They hold Dallas, get the ball back, and then Josh Sweat gets the interception on the Dallas's first possession. Dak throws it right to him, and bam, Eagles up 10-0. And I was going nuts. I was like, here we go again. It's the Dallas versus Philly and Philly game from earlier in the season. We're going to just intercept them all day long, and it's going to be great. But it didn't turn out that way. It didn't necessarily go our way. But I tell you what, before we get into the bad, I mean, this thing was a thing of beauty. I mean, look at how high in this picture that Josh Sweat just skies for this ball. It's unbelievable. And takes it all the way back to the house. Easy pick 6. Nobody in the backfield. But then it just kind of got into this up and down thing.
Yeah, man. Now I'm right there with you, man. I mean, after the pick 6, I'm like, all right, here we go. Because the first drive looked pretty smooth. We could have very well, got a touchdown on that drive. Got the ball down there. 25-yard field goal by Elliott. So got the ball way down to the Dallas 7-yard line, really.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot there off the rip, and then you go and get this touchdown. You go, okay, it's the best case scenario. I mean, obviously 14-0, but man, a pick 6, get them down early in their own stadium. When they know they really want this game, and then all of a sudden, boom, Dak makes a mistake early. Try to get them down as early as possible, but man, it just didn't really happen. They just kind of really bounced back right away from it with that 14-play drive, man, where we just looked like a sieve. I went from extremely happy to just all of a sudden just sitting there for that 14-play drive. Like, I can't believe this is happening, man. What you think about that drive?
You probably already know what I'm going to say is this is what we have as a defensive coordinator. So there's a lot of blame to go around this game. You can blame Josiah Scott for making mistakes, and we'll talk about that. You can blame the turnovers, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, bad handoff, 2 interceptions. You can blame that. You can blame bad calls. But in the end, there were too many times for me that the Cowboys were given drives where our defenders were standing still like they were in mud, waiting for something to happen, because that's Jonathan Gannon's defense. And it's frustrating to me to watch. Like I've said before throughout the season, is we make bad quarterbacks look good and good quarterbacks look great. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. I will say that. I've made stuff and jokes in the past that he's trash or that he's crap, but it has to be said. He's a good quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. But when you let Dak Prescott throw for 77% of his passes, that is, to me, you're setting yourself up for failure as a defensive coordinator. You're not doing the right things. And Gannon, that's just his game. And it really disheartened me, the first touchdown drive that they got, because I really thought after the interception that they would be more aggressive. Instead, they go into the shell. We've said our things about the shell, and then it's like when the Eagles get pressure, we've got a great front four. But the problem is when we get pressure, Dak always has somebody open downfield. It happened on the 3rd and 8, when Avonte Maddox, had him and should have had a sack, and he finds seated, a receiver down the sideline. Just guys open when they shouldn't be. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If we ran more of a man, if we ran a more tight coverage in the zone, if we were more mobile in the zone and not running the shell, our defense would be the top defense in the league. We'd be better than San Francisco. But I just don't know how far this team can go in the playoffs, because we know we're going. We don't know where we're going to be. But even if they're the number 1 seed, I don't know how far we can go if this is how Gannon is going to play top quarterbacks. I have this feeling if we played Tampa Bay right now, as bad as Brady is playing, Brady would complete 70% of his passes for 300 yards, because that's what Gannon does. I took a look before we get into the game. I took a look going back through the Eagles' last few games. So we look at this stat, and we've got Dak Prescott, 27 to 35, 77 completion percentage, 347 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 124 QB rating. So if you go back to our previous games, just go back to Chicago. Justin Fields, 14 to 21 for 66 completion percentage. Only threw for 152 yards, but that's not his game. But 18 QB. You go back to the Giant game, Daniel Jones, 66%, a 96 QBR. Daniel Jones. Now, he only threw for 169 yards, but again, they run the ball a lot. That's not their game, is to throw a big field. But when he threw it, he completed it. It goes on. It's a broken record. Even Tannehill threw for 63% of his passes and a 97 QBR. And don't forget about Aaron Rodgers. 68%, 140 yards, but then he went out, right? 95 QBR. Jordan Love comes in, 66% of his passes complete, 113 yards, 146 QBR. This is the way Gannon plays quarterbacks, and it's not good. There's the games where we've blown out teams, and it's been our defense causing turnovers and our fast-paced, high-scoring offense that has been doing it. But we've been on the razor's edge with Jonathan Gannon, and I know that the Eagles probably would have won this game had they not turned the ball over 4 times, but I guarantee you they would have won the game, even in spite of those 4 turnovers, had they been a little bit more aggressive with their coverage scheme, instead of sitting back and waiting for CeeDee Lamb to rack up 120 yards of offense on them. CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys had, how many times was he targeted? He was targeted 11 times, and he caught 10 of them for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's unforgivable. That's just not what the Eagles should be doing if we're going to win in the playoffs. So, end of rant. So, yeah, that first drive sucked. That they really got after the Josh Sweat interception, their first real drive. Yeah. It sucked. But again, the one thing you could say is that Gardner Minshew did everything he could for his skill set, and the offense as a whole, AJ and Devontae did all they could to continually keep the team in the game.
Yeah, man. When it comes to the turnovers, it's not necessarily just the turnovers, is when you get them or where where you get them at. If you fumble the ball, trying to sneak it in for a touchdown, and it's like, oh man, that sucks. But if you turn the ball over right after it's been kicked to you 2 or 3 plays and they're automatically in scoring position, that's what makes them hurt the most. We knew that Dallas could score, but giving them 4 additional possessions, that's just you're almost asking for it. You know what I'm saying? And that was the result of the game. To me, that's what really got them in that momentum, because they go down and get this touchdown, right? And then we go, okay. So what? They put together a drive. We just picked 6 them. They're pretty riled up. And then interception, boom, all of a sudden, and they get another touchdown. All of a sudden, it just flips all of that, where they just went from purgatory from this pick 6 down 10-0. Now it's 14-10 before you know it.
Right.
So they recovered so fast because of when the interceptions happened. I knew coming into this game, well, I talked about it last time, that I wouldn't be surprised if Quez Watkins got the ball more, because he's not a first team guy. So Minshew is used to playing with him on the second team a lot. And most of the times where this would have been Devontae Smith or AJ Brown, the ball was going to Quez. That's not Quez's game. Those tough catches across the middle where you have to be big, where you have to almost put the ball perfect. And the ball was just slightly off. It was slightly off target enough that, boom, defender's right there. So, but that's not Quez's game. That's not Quez's game.
Let's look at that real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's early.
To me, this is over the bet. This is way early. This was way early. I was screaming like a madman because, again, more Dallas home cooking.
But he's not open, is the point. The point I was trying to make, before we get, he's just not open in general. It's a bad throw. You should have never went there in the first place. You got Smith more open. And I know 42 is running to the ball because he sees it there, but throw that ball to Smith or throw it to AJ. He's not open regardless. So that the result of a bad decision, you don't get, now you're depending on the refs when it's a bad decision to almost overcome the bad decision. It is a pass interference. He was early, but you look at the rest of the game, that's how they've called it. They called it tight, roughly, unless it was like an obvious grab. But yeah, man, he just wasn't open in general. So when you put the ball to Quez Watkins, you can throw the ball with AJ Brown when he's not open. You can throw the ball to Devontae Smith when he's not open. You can't throw the ball to Quez you can't force the ball to Quez Watkins, is my point there. That's all my point was. And you see, all day, there were a lot of, the receivers balled out, especially Devontae, a lot of acrobatic catches. Dallas Goedert made it acrobatic, a lot of jump catches, a lot of dangerous ones, but these guys they was going to either go out of bounds or come down, but Devontae was on, man.
He was great.
So I just thought that was the problem, was personnel, man, and throwing the ball to Quez, because both the interceptions came from throwing the ball to Quez.
Right.
Quez would have never gotten that amount of targets if Jalen was back there. So that's just a Minshew making almost a predetermination. Like, I know Quez can run this route. I know where he's going to be. Game was on the line. Boom, let me get it right to him. Because it's like, if you look at it, once the game got back close, he starts to go to what he knows, and that's Quez. But I don't want to bang on about that. It's just, as far as that interception, it was just like, it was just a tight throw anyway. You throw that to AJ, because AJ can big body the guy, but this is just not a pass you throw to Quez Watkins. And that was just what I feared coming into this game, that he would get a little more attention than he's used to having in such a big stage, in such a big game. And the passes to Quez ended up costing us this game, or was a part of it. The other things with the fumbles, as far as just talking about the turnovers in general, that's just timing. The one with Sanders is just, but this play even started where the handoff looked weird. A few of those handoffs just looked weird. But even when you go back to last week, the handoff between, I think it was Scott and Jalen, was weird, where Jalen didn't want to give it to him. So I don't know if it's a Scott thing.
Right.
Just playing devil's advocate with my own team. I don't really know what it is, because we had some handling issues, last week as well too. So, but it was just unnecessary. It just felt, all the turnovers felt like, dang, make the Cowboys earn them, at least make them
Right.
earn them. The fumbles were just gut wrenching at times. So, but overall, no, I think you're right, man. Minshew played a well enough game. We should have won that game, but with those 4 turnovers on offense, in the timeliness again of them, man, it's like we were playing catch up. But to go up 10 twice in a game and lose that
Right.
game, it was just a roller coaster. Because second time we went up 10, I'm like, man, okay, we just don't need to. There's the freaking mistake. We just,
Yeah.
and I felt like, I'll say this, I don't want to get too towards the end, but I never felt like Dallas were better than the Eagles throughout that entire game. I just felt like we made mistakes at the wrong time.
I agree. I think that what made them look really good, you look at the numbers, and it's that 77% completion percentage. It was the soft coverage. And I'm going to get more into details because I got statistics on that to break down Gannon's coverage. But before we get into that, there's a couple of things that you said that I really, really agree with. With the Quez throws, now granted, so I'm not going to sit there. Initially, I put out on Facebook, Dallas clown refs are at it again, because it was a late hit, and then they call the illegal contact on Slay, which you could call it illegal contact, but the problem is Slay's got his arms up, and the receiver runs into him. You could watch it a million times. Now he makes contact, but he's not trying to make contact.
It's
So
a veteran move.
on a 4th and 8, when Dallas is going for it, to me the ref was waiting to throw that flag. And as soon as the receiver ran into Slay, it was almost like the old schoolhouse basketball games where you grab a guy, headbutt him, and foul, there's a foul. You force the contact.
Right.
He forced the contact on Slay, and the ref threw. So we have back-to-back really bad plays. The PI doesn't get called in that. So I was fuming about the penalties. But I will say this, I'm not going to be that guy that blames the game on the refs, because after that, I didn't see a lot of craziness like that. Not like the lost fumble that had no clear recovery a few years ago with Jordan Hicks, Michael Kendricks. I saw a pretty well called game, so I'm not going to blame the officials. But so that's the first thing. The second thing is the Quez throws. I do not believe that Jalen Hurts makes those throws. Like I say, I wholly agree with it. I don't even think he looks, because one of the things that Jalen does really well, he's only thrown 5 interceptions on the season. He doesn't throw into tight windows unless, like you said, it's A.J. Brown, where he knows he's got a strong receiver that can go for it and go one-on-one. That's the only time he ever throws into tight coverage. Jalen is patient, and he waits for a receiver to be open on timing throws, on timing routes, or just as the pattern, waiting for them to come open if it's a zone. Otherwise, Jalen will take off, and that's what he does. So in that play, if Jalen's behind center, I think he probably takes off running up the middle in most cases.
He's not throwing it to Quez.
No. And so that's where like where it comes into your playing against the backup, it does hurt us. Now, I will say this, Minshew was 24 of 40 for 60%, which against the Dallas defense, because they run a lot of tight coverages. Now, that's the difference. If you watched what the Eagles did with the against the Cowboys defense, now they got burned because they were running some man coverage, because we were going deep on them. We knew that's what was coming. And if our line could give them Minshew any type of time, he was going to air it out. The first play to A.J. Brown in the first drive was just unbelievably great. It was unbelievable. We unfortunately didn't get in, and we had to settle for a field goal. But Minshew he threw for 355 yards, which is great, but he was only 60% of his passes, which you think it would be bad. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for an 84 rating. So I mean, honestly, I honestly believe it. I sat there on my bed going, I already missed Jalen. I mean, I love Gardner. He's as a backup, he could have won this game. And I think that if he plays against the Saints, he could win that game as well. But there is something definitely missing between Jalen and Gardner. This is Victor Williams of the Philly podcast, another guy that I know that does a Philly pod, and he put this out on Twitter. This game showed me 2 things. Hurts blows out Dallas if healthy, and Eagles were limited on offense without him, MVP. Because honestly, we knew this. If the Eagles didn't win this game, and we saw a lack of mobility, which Gardner clearly never took off. There was so many times where he play faked and he could have run, but he didn't. That Jalen would have been gone. It would have extended drives. It would have ate more time off the clock. It would have kept Dallas's offense off the field. And I don't think the turnovers, like you said, the
They
handoffs.
probably told him. Oh, my bad. The
No, I was
handoffs.
saying the handoffs, like you said, were weird. The one to Boston Scott, I just said it is, and it's not Minshew's fault. It's not so much Scott's fault. It is. It's like when you bring a new center into the game,
Right.
you're messing up the rhythm, and there's nothing we can do about it. So same thing with Miles. It was a bad. He never really got the ball, and he takes off running, and then it just
spin,
horrible.
kind of twist, and next thing you know, the ball's on the ground. It's just it did come to some plays, but overall, the stats, 24 to 40 doesn't like pop out at you on the screen, but a few of those passes, you can just tell that they weren't going to force anything. Remember he threw the ball out of bounds like 3 straight times, like towards the end of the because we had to call that timeout. I think it was like we burned a timeout earlier or something like that, and we didn't have one, or I forgot exactly what happened. Should have looked at that. But overall, I thought the offense moved fine. AJ, talk about that first catch with AJ. I mean, he just destroys Diggs. Diggs is thinking it's a slant. AJ's running down. I mean, he's wide open, running down the field. Just another good look, man. So yeah, man, I think the only negatives was things you were going to expect. Minshew probably doesn't get a lot of work with the ones. He went to Mike Leach's memorial this week, so he missed Tuesday's practice.
Right.
So it already puts him on a very short, probably 3 days. Because in the pros, man, the ones normally work with the ones. Normally the two wouldn't work because they don't want to mess up the cadence. They want you to, everything sound, which I thought was awesome that there wasn't a lot of holding calls, wasn't a lot of false starts on our guys. So it sucks so bad that I'm bouncing around a little bit, that the line played so well from like a non-penalty standpoint, like illegal downfield, holding, and like the 3 false starts that we got. I think against the Giants, where you're just like, come on, guys, what are y'all doing? The line played really well until we lost a line. And, we still come out this game with another injury.
Right. We'll talk more about that at the end.
Yeah. So that part of it sucked, man. But I just thought, the offense overall, I thought they played well enough to win the game, but also not well enough to win the game with some of the decisions, like those Quez decisions. I just think if we just don't throw it to Quez on one of those two, or maybe in that Sanders fumble, my goodness, that Sanders fumble was the biggest play of the game.
Well, the fact that
being one of the biggest plays of the game.
The fact that the Eagles are in the game at the end and we get the interception to Quez and then the turnaround fumble to Sanders on the last 2 drives, resulting in Dallas field goals and putting them up 6, and then to still have an opportunity to get down to the 20 shows that Minshew was balled out. But here was the problem. We didn't have Lane Johnson there at right tackle. Minshew was rushed. They didn't have a lot of time on the clock, so he didn't have a lot of options. And in my opinion, Jalen Hurts out there, more mobility, he's going to try to find guys open down the field. Minshew just doesn't have that. And I'm nothing against him. Like you said, they played well enough to win. Yeah. They were in control many parts of the game. But here is the problem, is outside of the turnovers too. The turnovers were bad. They rarely forced Dallas to punt. They did, they were up 20-17 at half. They come out and force a 3 and out right off the bat. So, and they had the Sweat interception return for a touchdown. Other than that, I don't think Dallas punted the entire night. So, the Eagles get the ball after that. And then we have the fumble. Actually, they actually came down and got a field goal. So, yeah, because the Eagles ended up getting the ball and they ended up getting the touchdown to go up 27-17 right off the bat. So they get their first possession, which was really the second possession of the half, because Dallas had it first, forced a 3 and out. Philly comes down, and that's where they made it 27-17. And we were staring another 10-point lead in the face. So just like with the first 10-point lead, though, Dallas leads just an unbelievable drive down the field. Extremely long drive. I forget how many plays. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-play drive to get all the way down to the Philly 26 and kick a field goal to make it 27-20. Right there is when Gannon's got to get a stop and keep that 10-point lead and get us the ball back. Instead, they're completing 3rd and 2s. They're getting really short yardage. They're getting guys over the middle open, and it's frustrating. So that when they get it within 7 and the Boston Scott handoff fumble happens, now they've got it on the Philly 39, but immediately after a Tony Pollard stuff, they go to Dalton Schultz right over the middle, in the middle of that crappy zone for a 21-yard gain to get it down to the goal line. And then again, couldn't stop them on the goal line. And next thing you know, it's 27-27. And so here we are, another 10-point lead. And as quickly as we get it, it's gone. And, but again, they still had plenty of time. 27-27, they still have time to get into it. The Eagles take the lead back, which was amazing. And then probably the worst thing that happened in that game was the Eagles have the momentum. They're up. It is brilliant. And we get this. It goes 3rd and 30. 3rd and 30.
3rd and 30.
Eagles are up now 34-27. And we get back-to-back sacks by Hassan Reddick. And then we get it was just amazing. What we had let's see here, sack by Josh Sweat right off the bat, made it 2nd and 21, and then a pass to T.Y. Hilton that happened from this thing on a 3rd and 30 play. Just unexcusable. Because we had the Dak Prescott almost fumbled that they didn't. Hassan Reddick strip sacked him, and then Sweat sacked him. So we had back-to-back sacks, almost a fumble. If they get the fumble there, again, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to look at this picture, and for all those that listen to the podcast, you can't see it. I will describe it to you. We have 4 down linemen, and then we have 5 defensive backs, only one within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage at the snap. And then that must mean that we have 2 defensive backs very deep. Dallas has 3 wide receivers going out and 2 backs in the backfield. Now, normally on this play, a lot of teams will just throw underneath, try to pick up some yards, get a good punt. That's not what Dallas. They came out, and I will give them credit. They came out for blood on this 3rd and 30. They were going to throw it up. They rushed the snap. They didn't give the Eagles defenders a chance to adjust, and there's where miscommunication happened. But this, to me, there. A lot of people blamed Darius Slay. A lot of people blamed Josiah Scott. I blame Jonathan Gannon. As a defensive coordinator, it reminds me of when Jim Schwartz was our defensive coordinator, and we were playing Tennessee and had a lead, and they had a 2nd or 3rd and like 25, 28, and we backed everybody up to the sticks defense right at the first down marker, inexplicably. And what ends up happening? They throw an underneath pass, and the guy runs right by our defense for a first down. This is the same as that. This is unforgivable for a defense. And this, to me, is what Jonathan Gannon's defense is all about. He plays the soft shell. That's what he did, play prevent on a 3rd and 30, and you got burned. He has our best cover corner covering the underneath route, the flat route. That's a lot of people blaming Slay, and I'll say it right now. Slay is upset that people were blaming him. Came out, and Slay said, if y'all don't know football, please stop talking. Because somebody, this is what he retweeted. It looks like cover 2. Your safety got caught in the disguise, which is Scott, which caused him to not have enough depth to make a play. Your hinge technique was elite, talking about Slays. No crazy disguise needed when it's 3rd and 30. Thank you. It happens. On to the next one. No disguise needed. This thing on a 3rd and 30 of moving guys around in this stupid shell coverage, all you do is put people out of position. There's a way to play 3rd and 30, and you honestly got to put your best guys on the guys going downfield. Slay should have been on T.Y. Hilton. Instead, if you really watch the play, he stops as T.Y.'s passing him because that's his assignment. He's watching the underneath running back to make sure that somebody doesn't come out of the backfield and catch a pass and run it for 30 yards. That's Slay's assignment in this cover too. So he stops. And then when he sees the ball in the air, he tries to recover. It's too late. And Josiah Scott God love him. We lost Devontae Maddox in this game. He should, or Scott wouldn't have been out there. Josiah Scott was out of position. He did not see the disguise. He got caught off guard. He wasn't deep enough. Ty ran by him, and he had to try to make a play, and he couldn't make one. Mm-hmm. This play alone, to me, other than the 4 turnovers, was one of the key crucial moments of the game. This cannot happen. It cannot happen. You can't give up a 3rd and 30.
Bring the play back up. Here's where I think Slay is using. You know how you can use a technicality to be technically right, but you're technically wrong. But you're wrong in the literal sense. Here's why I say that. You look at this, Slay is already 9-10 yards off the ball, right? So
true.
If there is any running back coming out of here, left or right, so let's just stick to Slay side. So let's call it the left, right? So who is that over there? Like Zeke, maybe? Let's just call it Zeke. It doesn't matter, right? Let's say he does come out. Mind you, this is 3rd and 30. Slay goes another at least 10 yards down the field, right? That puts him 20 yards from the line of scrimmage. At what point are you no longer, hear me out on this, because he was right there when T.Y. caught the ball. There was no yak. They caught the ball. Slay was right there. It was bang, bang, caught it, and then he fell down. So hear me out. At some point, Slay needs to commit, is my point. You got coverage. Yeah. But then there's common sense as well, too. Slay is 25 yards down the field, still saying, I got under. At some point, if you don't even see Scott over there, you have to pick him up. So my problem with Slay is I get what coverage you're in, but at some point, you can see that you have 2 guys under there, and you're 25 yards from the line of scrimmage. At some point, you don't have under anymore, sir. There's no under. These guys are just sitting back there giving Dak time so he can take that throw. So I get what the coverage was. First of all, it couldn't have never been the cover 2, because on the 3rd and 30, who would call it cover through? You call cover 4s, you call cover 3s, you call cover 2.
That looked more like a cover 4. Yeah, right. It looked more like a cover 4 if you look at the formation.
Slay has the quarter side of the deep.
Right.
Who calls a cover? Let's just keep it real. Cover 2, you have a flat. You're playing 10 yards and under, so you're getting the running back coming out of the backfield. That key word here is out of the backfield. If Slay is taking off another 10 yards, how are you playing a 20-yard cover 2? What play can you make from the 20 yards deep and under? You no longer have that man anymore, man. I thought that at some point, Slay should have just, because he was so close to T.Y., and at some point, just go with him. There's nobody underneath of you. Go with him.
Right.
So it's a little bit of common sense. I just felt like at some point, now if he stayed where he was, like when the start of that play, if he stays where he was, or he even drops back maybe 5 yards, I go, okay, Slay, you're right, man. You kept the under because you're 15 yards from the line of scrimmage. But once you become 20 yards from the line of scrimmage, 25 yards, at what point do you just take the deep guy and just guard the person that's open? That is why, and as a captain, for you to throw a young player under the bus is always a no-go. All you do is say something like, we'll work on it better next time. Not if somebody had their assignments. That's not a leader. You know what I'm saying? In the locker room, like, because Slay makes bad plays too. What about the touchdown that was given up? Did you see anybody coming to the media talking shit about Slay? No. You get me? So when he messes up, nobody bashes him. So you got to keep that same energy when other players make mistakes. But for Josiah Scott, who's a nickel corner, to have that deep core, I just don't understand the assignments. That's why I can go with you on the Gannon part as well. Just weird assignments. But if Slay was in the cover 2, at what point are you not in the cover 2 when you're 25 yards downfield?
Right.
So you probably were in the cover 4, which means it really was Slay guy.
Well, but here's the thing is I did watch that play back several times, and Slay did like you said. He at the snap, he backs up a couple yards, and then he hesitates as he looks to see where Ty is and where his assignment is. And when Ty passes him, that hesitation caused Ty to get behind him. But the hesitation comes because of, again, like we talked about it when Schwartz was the defensive coordinator. These crazy, I'm such a genius defensive coordinator mess of assignments instead of keeping it simple. Remember when Schwartz was defensive coordinator and Malcolm Jenkins had to take him aside and go, "You're killing us with this overly complex defense." Look at what DeMeco Ryans is doing in San Francisco. They have one concept: kill the quarterback and stay on your man. That's DeMeco Ryans. That's how he played the game. And that's what I want to see in our defensive coordinator. I can only hope that, and to me, again, 4 turnovers, yes, if we don't have those turnovers, Eagles definitely win that game, without a doubt. But that it's just like the Green Bay game. If we had more than a couple turnovers in the Green Bay game, we probably would have lost that game because we gave up so many points to Aaron Rodgers. And so that's the thing is that if we have to use that as a barometer, then we're in trouble if we're going to continue to give up so many points every time the other team has the ball. So what I want to do is just look at Jonathan Gannon's number if you want, because first of all, you question Jonathan Gannon's cover 2 call you like. So the press has looked at it. This came from Blaney Green Nation, so take it for what you will. So they looked at it as a cover 2 as well. So maybe that at the snap it was cover 2, and then when you see him drop back, it looks like a cover 4. I don't know, but a lot of people saying that he went cover 2 on the 3rd and 30, which is silly.
Cover 2 what?
Yeah, but I'm going somewhere. I'm going somewhere with this. I don't want to beat. I don't want to beat the dead horse. They gave up a 52-yard pass to T.Y. Hilton. Scott said Josiah Scott said he was communicating the call as Dallas quickly snapped. So you put this guy in a bad position because Vontae Maddox is out and he's having to communicate the call. It's silly. Him and Reed Blankenship are rotating, and it just happened that Josiah Scott was there instead of Blankenship. And by the way, Blankenship didn't have a great game either. He gave up a lot of passes as well as Kevon Wallace. So we got to have some help. We need C.J. Gardner back as quickly as possible. Some fans wanted cornerback Darius Slay to cover for his teammate, but that's just not how it works. He was playing the trail technique and was responsible for the curl to flat. Scott was supposed to have the deep half. Credit Prescott and Hilton as well, and Hilton as well. They took advantage of the mistake, but there are plenty of Prescott taking advantage of the Eagles. He completed all 24 of his passes for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns versus zone looks. He was 24. This is where I'm going with this. He was 24 of 24 for 300 yards against the zone. According to NFL's next gen stats. That is exactly what we're talking about. Against the soft shell, zone. 24 of 24 for 300 yards. Prescott, you want to know what he was against the man? 3 of 11 for 47 yards.
Man.
And an interception.
There you go.
And the interception versus man defense. Gannon played a little bit more man than usual, but not enough. This is a trend with Gannon against top quarterbacks. And we've said it on here. He pays them way too much respect. He is so terrified of giving up the big play that he doesn't trust his man defense. He doesn't trust his players. And that's when we get guys like Slay, who ends up looking like crap if you would just let him do his job and cover T.Y. Hilton or cover CeeDee Lamb and stop telling him he's got to cover 5 different assignments. If you let Darius Slay be Darius Slay, he's not going to feel like he's been taken advantage of and throw a rookie under the bus. Shouldn't have done it. Should have just kept his mouth shut. But he does feel attacked, and I think it goes right back to the Malcolm Jenkins thing. When Jenkins had to go to Schwartz and say, "You're killing us," somebody has to go to Gannon and say, "We're not running this anymore. This defense sucks, and it's going to lose us a chance at the Super Bowl." And I truly believe that it will. If we get in the playoffs, even Brock Purdy, if we end up going against the San Francisco 49ers, will complete all of his passes against the zone and score enough points to beat the Eagles. I guarantee you, if this is what Gannon gives us, and I've said it since last year, I say it again, I beat it. If this is what Gannon is going to give us, we're not going anywhere. I hate to say it. We're not going anywhere because we can't play against decent offenses if we're going to give them 77% of their passes for 340 yards. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah. I think for the most part, yeah, man. I mean, 24 for 24, the proof's in the pudding right there. At some point, you just have to start knowing man because you're having a better result. But, On the drive where CD Lamb caught the ball, CD Lamb had like what 8 or 9 catches in the first half. And it was just like, come on, man. At some point, they're just lining him up in the slot all of a sudden, just lining him up in the slot, kind of doing like a Christian Kirk type move where they'll line him up in the slot and then just run off your worst guy, which is Josiah Scott. But if you're in the zone because you need help, we know our zone in the middle is weak. So I think what concerns me is, going into the playoffs, what are we going to do to fix it? Are we just going to keep getting beat by teams that can throw the ball across the middle on it? Because that's what it's seeming like. You put your best guy, you run him around our, Josiah Scott, all is well. But, Maddox going out was a game changer. You can just see the shift in momentum in the secondary when Maddox went down. So, there are some things there too. But, I think the reason why, you harp on turnovers so much because it's 20 points off the turnovers. So it's like, so if you do quick math, you go with Eagles could win 34-20 without the turnovers, like give and go. Okay, like we get the defense is going to give up some, but they scored off of those turnovers, and that is what makes it back onto the offense, where it keeps going back. Like, well, if you guys didn't put us in this position, and we haven't been, we look at basically the games that we've lost are the games that we've had high turnovers. It's been really just that simple.
It's just 2 games, yeah. We had four against the Commanders, against the Commanders,
Washington, and then 4 against Washington, 4 against Dallas. 2 losses of games that we should have won. Now they're, they were bigging up Tyler Heineke. Now they're talking about putting Wentz back in.
Yeah.
So like you said, we make bad quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Now this guy, he was on the run before us, but we like solidified his starting spot when he beat the Eagles, right? Yeah. Now they're talking about putting Wentz back in. It's because we give people hope. We give quarterbacks hope. We give them easy reads. We give them very simple looks. And sometimes it really ends up biting us. You're right, man. If you look at what the Jets are doing with Sauce Gardner, they're just letting him be the guy. If you look at what Denver is doing with Surtain Jr. or the second, I think it's the second, he's balling out here. I mean, he's a 6'1" corner. He's a huge corner, but he's balling out here because they're just saying, hey, that's their best guy. Go ahead and guard him. They do that to Rams. They do that to a lot of the big name guys. And you see what happens. If you're going to play them that one side like that, then you got to do like the Legion of Boom method, where Sherman never traveled. He just stayed right where he was at. And it was like a waltz. Everybody just knew where to be. And you don't have those mix-up where Sherman's like, I don't know where to be, because he only plays that side. So he always knows where to be. That makes sense. Like and that's why they were so successful. So we have to make some type of adjustments, man, because to say, that's that guy, or, this guy's fault. At the end of the day, what hurts you more? The guy running past you or the guy underneath you? The guy running past you hurts you more. And that's why I said at some point, you just have to play football.
Right. Well, I get you. Like you said, the thing is, I'm not averse to running a zone. I think that the problem is we've been under this kind of coverage since Jim Schwartz, so several years now. As long as Schwartz was here, and now the 2 years under Gannon, we've been running this overly complex, and it's a thing that's going around the NFL. And if you watch it, these defense that run this, like Miami, Minnesota, they're getting their ass beat. They don't look good at all on defense, and it's because they're running this. And it's just a trendy defensive coverage that doesn't work. And I don't understand why it's become so huge, because it doesn't work. It's like prevent defense on steroids. But the problem with it is, like you said, as regular zone defense, you're responsible for your area. Guys come in and out of the defense. Under a Gannon scheme, it's about this zone assignments where you switch up. If this is coming there, and this, I've got this assignment, and it confuses the players when you're trying to play man versus zone, and it's starting to cause a rift. And like you said, it is about at the end of the day, the Eagles lost as a team. I do think that they will bounce back from this. My problem is, and I think they should beat New Orleans. But I think that going forward, I worry about this defense, not the players. I've said it all year, not the players. I worry about the scheme in big games, and Gannon giving up another 40 points. 40 points to me, and I know 20 of it was off turnovers. Inexcusable no matter what the situation. So this was Fletcher Cox. He says, I think this is a really pissed off team right now. This is after the loss. We know the type of club we are. I think this team is really pissed off. And that's just his feel of it. And then Hassan Reddick had this to say, it's all about the way we respond now. I love this team. Fly, Eagles, fly. So we know that these guys, that they're hurting. Miles Sanders took it extremely hard. I don't blame Miles at all. Again, I don't blame Boston Scott. I don't blame Minshew. Quez didn't fight for the ball a lot, but I don't even blame him a lot. These things happen. It was a tough game. I do blame Jonathan Gannon, but other than that, as a team, I think that Shane Steichen did great. I think Nick Sirianni did amazing. I think Minshew did as best as he could do. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith over 100 yards each. We'll talk about more about them in a second. And at the end of the day, we lost to the Cowboys at home, and let's look at it. It's 1-1 now on the season. We both beat each other's backups. The good thing is that we're not 2-0 against them going into the playoffs and maybe having to try to beat them 3 times in a row, which is very hard statistically to do that we've seen in the NFL. I brought that up earlier. So we have to suffer through this loss. But what cracks me up is my, like I said, one of my favorite segments, and we're going to play this.
Hell to the no, to the no, no, no. Hell no, no, to the no, no. Hell to the no, no, to the no, no, no.
So this is her hell to the no this week, and this is just typical of Cowboy fans. Now, granted, I mentioned on here before, I have several friends that are Cowboys fans, and I love them. They're not all the typical douchebag Cowboy fans, but there are several that I've dealt with that are like this. So after the Eagles beat Cooper Rush, this is all we heard. You literally beat us with Cooper Rush. The win means nothing, and we almost beat you, which they didn't. They didn't almost beat us. They had a couple of flurries where they scored a couple of quick touchdowns, got within 3, and then the Eagles went on a long drive that they could not stop and put the game away. And then beat them by 11, if I'm not mistaken. But this is how they're acting after the Cowboys fans after beating Gardner Minshew. There are a lot of them, not all, but a good deal of them. If you go on the message boards, they are laying claim to that this is just proof that they're the best team in the NFC. So, yeah, okay. Number 1, you were at home, and number 2, you nearly got spanked by a backup who threw for over 300 yards on you. So I wouldn't be so happy going forward. I think that this Dallas team, as good as they are on defense, they didn't look good at all against the Eagles. And so they should be worried because that footage is going to go around to other teams that are going to know that if you air it out against their tight man coverage, that they could be in trouble. And so here's a bonus hell to the gnaw. This is a one I just love, this Jerry Jones thing. This is a Nike ad parody. Believe you're still America's team, even though you haven't won anything this century. Just keep saying 5 rings. Dude, they've been saying that forever, and we're going back to 96 when they got their last ring. I don't think it's this year for them. If it's not the Eagles this year, in my opinion, it's going to be the 49ers. I just think that this team, no matter what quarterback you plug and play into that, is they're just that defense. You watch what they did this past weekend again. They just maul teams. That teams that you'd think that Purdy would struggle against, but they're making Purdy look like Tom Brady when they're blowing out Tom Brady because he doesn't have to do much. Because they got McCaffrey, they'll have Debo coming back. They got Brendan Ayuk, they got Kittle, who's going off week after week now because Purdy's got him underneath. Kittle wasn't doing anything for me. I had him on my fantasy. Purdy comes in and he's just taking advantage of McCaffrey and Kittle. If McCaffrey stays healthy, and I think he will, that'll be one of the biggest mid-season trades that people will talk about because I think, it's just my belief, that I think that the NFC Championship game is going to come down, my opinion, to San Francisco at Philly. And I think it's going to be a tough game. Eagles can definitely win, but they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah. I was surprised about then I saw the end of that score because it was 7-7 at halftime. And then I looked back up and I said, dang, that game got going. The Washington Niners game.
Yeah.
It being 7-7 at the half. And I'm like, okay. And then I look back up and man, they got going.
That second half was bloody. And Washington, to me, has a really good defense. Not a great defense, but they have a good defense. And they were humbled. They could do nothing on offense against the 49ers. 49ers held them at bay. It wasn't even, and anytime that the 49ers punted, because that was how the first half was, they weren't fearing the Commanders. They weren't doing anything. And it's just statistically, it was just unbelievable to watch. And it was because I was watching that on my other TV while I had the Eagles on. And I kept looking down at it going, man, the freaking Niners are just like, it was like a bully holding a short kid at bay with his hand on his forehead, just saying, you ain't coming in here. And it's embarrassing, to lose to a team like that when you just weren't even in it at all. It wasn't even close. So it's crazy. But back to the Eagles and some good news. Like I said, with the 100 yards that Devontae Smith had in this game, he is now over 1,000 yards on the season. So congratulations to Devontae Smith. And this is, believe it or not, the first 2 players for 1,000 yards receiving duo in franchise history. First time the Eagles have had 2,000-yard receivers in their franchise history. And this is a team that's had, Fred Barnett and we've had friggin' D-Jack and Jeremy Maclin. Never happened with those.
And this is also
happened with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
And this is also a team that wasn't even really considered to be throwing the ball at all. So to come up with, you consider like in the past, all of those passing teams, but they also didn't have, Heisman talent plus, plus A.J. Brown.
Well, if you listen to the media, that's all that Jalen Hurts is a system quarterback that just runs and throws when he needs to. They don't even watch the games, dude. They seriously don't. But the bottom line is still this. The Eagles just need to win one of the final 3 games. They lost Dallas, so they only need to win one of these final 2 games, either against the Saints coming up this Sunday or against the New York Giants, both at home. Both at home. So no excuse. If the Eagles can't win one of these games, no matter how injured they are right now, then they don't deserve that number 1 seed. But I think they're going to get it done. There's also this talking about Jalen Hurts. This tool, Nick Wright on the Herd with Colin Cowherd, all that. He says that he's warned us after the Dallas game. I think it's likely that Philly is a 1 seed and one and done rather than them being the NFC Super Bowl representative. Just so you know, that's what everybody said about us in 2017. Oh, yeah. So, and including this tool. So we'll see what happens. I think that the Eagles will be more than a one and done. It depends on what shakes out. It is a dark time right now. We don't need injuries at the end of the season. And like we talked about, we had 2 big ones. We've lost Lane Johnson, and the status has come back. We lost him in the Dallas game. He's going to miss the rest of the regular season. So that puts Jack Driscoll either at right tackle, which is maybe not good. They're talking about moving Mailata to right tackle and then putting Andre Dillard in at left. I would be kind of for that if Mailata can play it. I know they've swapped him around before, but it's not going to be easy for Mailata to switch. It always switching from left to right tackle is not a great thing because it messes up your kick foot on what you're going to be doing. But if anybody can do it, Jordan Mailata can do it. I like what Dillard has been doing for us in relief. I feel much better be honest with you. I can't believe I'm saying this. I feel much better with Dillard in there than I do with Driscoll. I like Driscoll. Don't get me wrong. I think we can do it with Driscoll. I think Dillard is a stud. So, but Lane should be back for the playoffs. If the Eagles get the number 1 seed, that's going to be even better because then he should be able to play in the first playoff game right off the bat. Also lost Avonte Maddox, and this guy just keeps getting hurt. I don't see him being an Eagle for very much longer. We're going to need some more slot corner help. I love him when he's healthy. Guy's got intense. He does some great things, but it's getting harder and harder to rely on him. He has a toe injury, could be turf toe. They haven't really specified what it is, and he's out indefinitely. We don't know if we're going to get him back at all, which is why it's critical that we get CJ Gardner-Johnson back. He's supposed to be eligible to return this week. He's eligible to come off IR, but they're waiting on CAT scans, MRIs of his lacerated kidney to make sure that he is healed enough so that he doesn't re-injure himself. And that's the key. If we have to hold CJ Gardner back until the Giant game, then that's what we do. Hopefully we don't need to win that game and CJ can rest, but I hope he plays against the Saints, because let's just be honest, CJ Gardner-Johnson playing against his former team, you don't think he wants to do that? You don't think he wants to play at a high level and pick off Andy Dalton a few times? I think that's a given.
Oh, yeah.
Other injuries, this is just came out in Nick Sirianni today. He said if Jalen's ready, Jalen will play. That it's about a day-to-day thing. There's no timetable on his return. They just got to keep reassessing him. Even if he doesn't practice at all this week, Jalen could play if he's physically ready and fit enough to play with that shoulder on Sunday. I got a feeling that he's going to play on Sunday against the Saints. I just got this sinking feeling that he's going to prove everybody wrong. He's going to come back out, put on a show, and get his name back in that MVP race. What do you think? Do you think he's going to be able to play on Sunday? Do you think they should even hold him out?
I think, I think it should see, because Jalen finished the Chicago game. Now, if Jalen left the Chicago game, I would be a little more concerned, but he finished the game. He finished that last game. So it's not like we know he's capable because we've seen it, even after the injury. With that being said, man, it's like, I really feel like we can beat the Saints without Jalen. Then I would like to see him maybe play a half of the Giants game and then, head off into that first round bye week and try to get as rest up as possible, really rest that shoulder a lot so that if all else, so he can play his full game. He can have his full complement of skills. So when he does go into the playoffs, we want a healthy Jalen. If I feel like the Eagles can beat anybody in the NFC, then we just need a healthy Jalen. If we don't have a healthy Jalen, can you imagine if he gets hurt against the Saints? It's like, man, because now it puts you in the position that if you lose Minshew as well, you're done. That's what makes it so crazy. That's why you got to protect your quarterbacks, because you still have a shot. You still have a good team around you. So nobody's expendable. So if you can play Minshew, if he can go out there and give you the same thing he gave against the Cowboys, I think it's good enough to give Jalen another game, just one more game, because he's going to run. He feels like he's the best athlete out there. So if all else fails, he can do it himself. It's been working for him his whole life. That's why I just think it's so hard for them to just switch it off. So, man, I don't want to see him out there against the Saints because they have nothing to play for. I don't know. It just gets weird. I hate
they do, though.
Are the Saints still in it?
Yeah, they're one game behind Tampa Bay. Now, Tampa Bay winning hurt their chances, but they're only one game out of the NFC South.
My bad. Well, then, okay,
so bad. Carolina and New Orleans. Carolina beat Detroit, so they're still in it. They're both one game sitting behind Tampa Bay. So they're hoping the Saints are hoping Tampa Bay slips up. So I think that New Orleans is going to come out. We'll talk more about the New Orleans game on Thursday when we preview it, but I think New Orleans is going to come out with trying to win this game. They just beat Cleveland. Granted, that's not saying much because Deshaun Watson's not playing up to his full potential yet. But that they've been on a little bit of a roll. I think they only have 6 wins, but we will see. We'll see how it goes. But I think
and that's a good point, because I know them and the Panthers. I know if the Panthers went out, they win a division.
Yeah.
So the Panthers are 6-9. So if the Panthers win these next 2 games, they make the playoffs somehow. Which is wild, considering you want to talk about a trade for McCaffrey to leave. You fire your coach, get rid of your quarterback, you get rid of your running back. But anyway, more Eagles football. As far as that, man, I just I think when it comes to Jalen, if we can rest him one more game, then play him in the Giants game, I'll be more for that than playing him in the Saints game, then resting him for the Giants game, plus a bye week. Man, now we're talking over 2 weeks of rest and not playing. In the perfect world, Minshew beats the Saints, Jalen plays a half against the Giants, and we get rested up for the playoffs.
My number one goal, desire, everything this week is to win this game against the Saints, and I think lay it on the line. I do think that it's important that we don't lose him. I think maybe you start Minshew. If he struggles, then you got Jalen suited up, ready to come in the second half and maybe be the savior if it's a close game. Maybe that's what they do. I don't know. I just know that everybody's going to need to play their best game on Sunday to bounce back from this loss. Granted, the level of team going from Dallas on the road to New Orleans at home, it should be, we'll talk more on Thursday, but it should be pretty much a given that the Eagles are favored. They are favored, and that they should win this game. But we'll see how it goes. As usual, I like to share some of my past Facebook posts because I post all about the Eagles all the time. This particular one today I found on my memories from Christmas Day, or the day after Christmas, the 26th. So December 26th, 2020. And I wrote, first of all, in big capital letters, thank you, Packers, for the Eagles' Christmas gift, an NFC East title because they beat the Cowboys and we didn't need to do anything else. Just what we wanted. Second, I am down 2.56 points in my fantasy football championship, but my opponent has no players remaining while I have two Eagles, Akers and Djax. Now I just have to wait until Tuesday night to take it, but that is all flipping cool. So this is probably one of the last times I won a fantasy football championship, but I did win in 2020, about 12 years ago. But the Eagles on the 26th of December got an NFC East title in 2020. Seeing this made me feel good because I remembered that and going, oh, that the feeling of an NFC East title. So I really want to see the Eagles come forward and take this whole thing and get that number one seed on Sunday. So we'll talk more about that on Thursday. But next, want to keep it going with some positive vibes. The Pro Bowl listing came out. Now we know that the Pro Bowl is going to be a joke this year because it's going to be flag football in Vegas, whatever. But the getting named to it is an important thing. Getting the recognition is an important thing. So these are the following Eagles that were voted into the Pro Bowl as first team players. Lane Johnson, Miles Sanders, Landon Dickerson, A.J. Brown, Hassan Reddick, Jason Kelsey, Darius Slay, and of course, Jalen Hurts named to the Pro Bowl. So congratulations to these guys who did really well. There was A.J. Brown is the first Pro Bowl wide receiver that we have had as the Eagles since Deshaun Jackson in 2013. So it is crazy. There were a few notable people that didn't make it. Fletcher Cox was upset that Javon Hargrave did not get named, which is ridiculous the year he's been having. But again, we know that the sports writers and the people involved in this don't watch the Eagles. They don't know what's going on here in Philly. Also, Darius Slay was mad that Bradbury did not get voted in, as well as Javon Hargrave. Now, on the good side, that they do have 9 players who were named as alternates so far for the Pro Bowl. So they're on the standby list for when people can't go. Hopefully, none of our players are eligible to play in the Pro Bowl because they'll be playing in the Super Bowl, but we'll see. So the alternates for the Pro Bowl have been Devontae Smith, Isaac Seumalo, Jordan Mailata, Javon Hargrave, Brendan Graham, Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, James Bradbury, and long snapper Rick Lovato. That is a crazy amount of people named to the Pro Bowl and alternate of the Pro Bowl. And we just wanted to show this is the amazing, gotta love him, Eagle for life, Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach, pointing out that every single member of the offensive line is either a Pro Bowl starter or alternate, or Pro Bowl first teamer or alternate. It's the entire line. Stoutland, in response, says he's fortunate to coach such great players. Always keep your eyes on the prize. Now, usually about the Pro Bowl, it's going to be about getting that ring, getting that championship. So congrats to all those guys who made it for the Pro Bowl. 2 of those guys who I love put this out for Christmas. This picture is literally one of my favorites that I've ever seen. Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson putting out their Christmas photos. Did we just become best friends? It's like stepbrothers. It is hilarious to look at this stuff. The stepbrothers, Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, freaking goobers, man. I love them to death. This team. The chemistry, though, is I think I've mentioned it before. I think it's one of the best that in the league as far as players being able to count on one another and having that team atmosphere. It's like Hassan Reddick came to the Eagles and he says it all the time. I love this team. So even in a loss, they're going to have to rally themselves together and rely on one another. I know that Slay and Scott will talk about what happened. They'll get back in practice and Scott will mentor the kid. Probably won't shut up, but he will, they will talk about it and they'll come out better for it. And we'll see how things go against New Orleans.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Nah, yeah. Nah, man, I thought you was about to hit the music. I thought you was reaching for to cue it up because I seen the
I
prompt down there.
saw my hand move over.
Yeah. Once I seen the prompt down there, so I was just thinking like, okay, he's whining it anyway. But no,
I was gonna give you like some to give your comments on the Pro Bowl selections.
Yeah, just the it's like it's just flag football this year. I think they know. Only thing I was mad at that Hargraves didn't make it in. Hargraves was a bit weird. I mean, he's been that guy. But you can't put them all in. Other players, but to have that many guys make the Pro Bowl is exceptional, man. And I'm sure they'll always remember it. Had the most in the league. That's for some. Again, shout out to Nick Sirianni. That he just doesn't get any credit. I know we talk about how Jalen doesn't get any credit, but for a guy to come into the league, like they basically, if Sean McVay was doing this, they would be talking about Sean McVay. If the guy Shanahan out there with the Niners, if he was doing it, they would be talking about him. But it's something about this Eagles franchise, this area, that no matter what they do, they just don't really get. You don't even hear Nick Sirianni's name mentioned, really. Yeah. If you listen to anything, unless you're listening like specifically to Philly Talk radio, you really look outside. If you don't hear Coach of the Year recommendation, this man has 8 Pro Bowlers, the most in the NFL, second to the great Andy Reid, and you just don't hear anything about him, man. Eagles lead the league in sacks. So, I mean, that's what's going to keep his job, man. What's his name? Gannon. Because it's like this crazy world out here where you got these guys that went from, you couldn't get sacks last year. Now you're the best. So we just got to stay with the Birds, man, the Birds coaching staff, and just hope we can all piece this together, man, for that run. But in the meantime, we definitely need to beat the Saints and just woosah. Take the, we don't want to go down to the last week and we're desperate and the Giants can try to just spoil everything for us. We don't want that. Let's just beat the Saints. So I feel you. I feel a lot of other Eagles fans that say Jalen should just play, get it over with. We definitely will be able to beat them. But man, we can just run the ball with this all-pro line that we have. We should be able to beat the Saints, man. I just really don't see why we can't beat the Saints with even with Minshew. I just don't see why we can't. So, yeah, man.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And that's what's coming up next. And there it is, the music. There is the outro music. Sunday at the Link, 1:00. And we've been doing good on Sunday 1:00 games lately. I love Sunday 1:00 games. Let's keep it up. And let's win another one. Got the Saints coming into town. Andy Dalton, Alvin Kamara. They're doing okay. I mean, they're trying to get a playoff spot, so it's not going to be easy. We're going to preview this game on Thursday, so you want to tune into the live stream. Thank you for all who tuned in tonight, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook Live, or on Twitch. We also want to thank all our regular podcast listeners on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Podcaster, Caster, and so many others. If you don't have us on a podcast that provider you use, or you just want to send us an email, give us a suggestion or anything like that, you can reach out to us at our email address. That is lee.bird, lee.byrd @eaglesdare@gmail.com. So with all that being said, Eagles, yep, we got a hard one. We lost a hard one to Dallas. We're going to move on. We're not going to speak of this ever again. We'll move on to the next one, and we'll move on to New Orleans. So with all that, I'm going to say, turn it over to Tubby for his final words of the night.
Thanks, everybody, as always, for coming out to the Where Eagles Dare podcast. Hell with the Cowboys. They got one over on us. They got lucky, man. We just didn't play our best game. Hopefully, we still control our own destiny, and that's all you can really ask for. That being said, man, fly, Eagles, fly.
And go Birds. We'll talk to you guys again on Thursday. Have a good one.